Notebook number 4. 1. Toon. After reaching the aforementioned wall of absurdity, she told me about the previous semester. She was nowhere to be found. Ziru. After we met at the club's booth at orientation, she never followed through. She said she was too busy with schoolwork, but really she wasn't. I knew she was slacking off. Once, she dropped by around noon, basically when the office was at its most bustling, and sat in the far corner staring at me without saying a word. When I asked how she was all smiles. I raised my voice, trying to show solicitude. A moment later, she'd put on her backpack and wandered off, vanishing into thin air. The next time I ran into her, she'd adopted a more mature hairstyle, and there was a conspirational grin on her face. She hadn't fooled me, though. I was on to her decadent ways. I liked these two, and I knew that they liked me. There was no romantic interest whatsoever in that like. As for how much I liked them, the two of them were perhaps my favorites out of all the people whom that word applied. I liked them as individuals. I liked them even more when they were together. Were I a fanatical collector of figurines, these two would be my most prized pair. Not only the people I'd forged close bonds with, but almost everyone I knew from college appeared or disappeared in the blink of an eye. No one could be counted on to show up anywhere. Our relationships were about as tight as those between one drifting nebula and another. When I was 20, these two entered my orbit, and like every other nebula drift, soon strayed from its center. Yet they came to represent something very important to me. And what was that? The answer is simple: beauty. The meaning they brought to my life could be condensed into a single image that has stayed with me ever since. On the morning of our school's anniversary, our club set up a concession stand with beverages and snacks to rake in some extra dough. Everyone was doing their own little jig to attract attention, and I was sitting there hollering. Out of nowhere appeared the shaggy-haired duo of Toon and Ziru, who had a guitar on her back. Toon had gone for a retro look in baggy white capri pants, complete with suspenders. Ziru was wearing the skirt from her military uniform, which made me smile. She said it was for an occasion that evening, and that she'd add a white blouse for a seamless transition to a formal, elegant look. The two of them joked that they should help drum up business while I was working the concession stand. They sat on the edge of the table, Ziru concentrating on her tuning and Toon riffling through the sheet music. As soon as they were ready, they exchanged a quick glance, then launched into their seat. The first song was Cherry Came Too. One of them strummed, while the other swayed and sang, Oh Cherry Honey. A light rain began to fall. After a spell, they stopped to wipe their faces of the ethereal dew that had showered down from the sky like confetti. Life, it seemed, was beautiful. I hadn't thought about it in ages, until one day the sound of pattering rain, along with Cherry Came Too, entered my dreams. The Freud seminar ended that Friday evening at 10. Being the last one to leave, I shut off the lights. Emerging from the gloomy classroom in the basement, I was struck by acute waves of self-pity. I scrambled to find a payphone, then tossed in a coin and called Toon. I hadn't seen a trace of her in more than a month, and I missed her like she was family. Toon, is that you? It's Lazi. How have you been? It's nice to hear your voice. Sorry I don't have the energy to go out tonight. I couldn't bring myself to say anything about my troubles or how much I missed her, as we'd never gone so far as to reveal our feelings to each other. But on that dark night, the two of us, by way of a single coin, were touched by a mutual warmth. That was a moment when the dust settled. Everything was going to be okay. How about if I come visit you? Right now? Right now. Okay, come over then. What are you waiting for? At 19 years and 11 months old, I'd invested a single coin, and the significance of this act was extraordinary. It was like the moment when a crawling baby learned how to stand up and take that very first step. I was in need, and so I called someone. The instant itself was a blur. I had wrongly assumed that I, having played the role of protector far too often, was overreacting the way a parent frets over a child getting sick. But no, this was an important turning point for me. For a long time, my hidden shame had made me push everyone away. I rejected them before they could reject me. I ran away from close relationships, even with the people who loved me. I was a blind man fallen into the ocean. I'd taken the mirror and smashed it to pieces, unable to stand the sight of my hideous, disfigured self. Toon was the first person I'd taken the initiative to call on. She was the one mirror that I was willing to see my own self-pity in. "Do you want something to eat?" Toon asked. "I'm starving. What do you have?" "Milk, bread, fruit, everything." "How about if I make you a bowl of noodles?" "Sure, I'd be up for that. But if I have to help you, forget it." How on earth did I end up with this terrible houseguest who can't feign the slightest manners? It was 11 in the evening, and Toon had let me in. Everyone else in the house was fast asleep. She came out to meet me, humming under her breath, and it made me feel at home. "Have you ever hit the wall of absurdity?" She handed me a bowl of noodles and sat down across from me. "Yeah, a long time ago, when I was 16, 17. But back then I didn't think of it in those terms. The noodles looked delicious. I started wolfing them down. So what happened? Can you tell me?" I gestured okay one-handedly. "No problem. But first you have to sign a contract saying that you owe Lazi 100 bowls of noodles." A long, wide trail of steam rose from the savory beef broth. There was still one large, tender curl of beef remaining. Hey, that beef was actually braised by my dad. Do my dad and I make a good beef maestro and noodle chef team, or what? Toon asked excitedly after a pause, unable to contain herself any longer. "I don't care if this is processed beef noodle soup," I responded. Then, becoming solemn, I told her, "It was one night about 2 or 3 years ago when my world started to change. I wasn't really sure what exactly was changing, but suddenly there I was, in an unfamiliar place. I felt like I was being pulled in so many different directions, to the point where I had no idea who I was anymore. I was crying out for help, but no one seemed to hear me. I couldn't imagine my future. I kept waiting for my old world to come back and lift me out of this silent depression. Every morning I'd wake up and see the sun, and cry knowing that today would be the more of the same, that the old world was gone forever. It was like, this is how things are now. Welcome to cold, hard reality." "How'd you get out of it?" The wall of absurdity might be gone now, but that was only the prologue. If you fast forward a little, the relationship between me and the world gets even uglier. The fact is, it's been a constant battle. Absurdity? That's the least of it. You're trapped, so you force yourself to adapt after a while. Otherwise, if you start thinking too much, you'll suffocate. But once you become stronger than your surroundings, the absurdity will come to an end. It sounds like the home of a married couple who quarrel nonstop, until someone pulls out a kitchen knife or handgun, and the fighting comes to a halt. She was laughing so hard that it looked like she was trying to swat a mosquito. That's really how it is, at least for me. What about you? My whole world wasn't turned upside down in one night, but it's like you said, I feel this silent depression, and I don't know why things have to change. Something is blocking my path, and I call it the wall of absurdity. Honestly, I'm having a total breakdown. Ever since I was little, I've always been successful at everything I've tried. It's probably because my mom and dad let me pursue whatever I wanted, so I had other things on my mind, besides wanting to be at the top of my class, or wanting to be the prettiest or most popular. Yet I was naturally at the top of my class, and I got along with everyone, and you could say I've turned out to be okay looking. Succeeding at whatever I tried made me into a happy, well-adjusted kid. I made it through all the dreadful parts, although getting zits and my period were stressful. You might say I was like a little sunflower in junior high, but back then life was about jumping through hoops. I always did my homework as soon as I got home from school. Classes were really easy. All you had to do was pay attention in class and you'd do fine on the tests. So then I had a load of free time. I liked reading The Big Book of Why and other science books, and I built and painted my own furniture. The paint you see on my bedroom walls is something I did in those days. It was so much fun, always trying new things. In high school, I got kind of depressed. I was like, how come all we do is study? So I decided to take it easy instead. I didn't want to go home and do my homework like clockwork anymore, so I became captain of all these sports teams. I started a volleyball team and led the basketball team's practices and organized group outings with all boys schools. I got into the gifted program at Academia Sinica, and at the same time I was directing all these brilliant performances in drama competitions. After I got into Academia Sinica, I realized that this one guy had been trying to get with me the whole time. Suddenly, doing well in school became less of a priority. Growing up, I felt so different from the girls I knew, though I applied myself all the same. I remember how my older brother had to escort me on his bike when I went out on those chilly nights. He'd be on his bike and I'd be on mine, and neither of us would say much. I just focused on pushing the pedals, one foot after the other, until we got home. That's what high school was like. It was such a great feeling. She was smiling as she spoke. It doesn't sound like there is any reason you changed. Do you have any idea what happened? It must have something to do with the college lifestyle, right? It's scary. It's like all this bacteria was already there, but because it was microscopic, you let it build up and form dust under the rug. The college lifestyle is about becoming independent, with no one else around to force you to do anything. So there's this muck that hasn't been dealt with, and because all your arrangements are loose now, you have no one to hold on to, which means you get sucked into the vacuum cleaner and tossed around in it. Your automatic response is to grab hold of something and pull yourself out. My first instinct was to cling to Ziru. I wanted her by my side all day, every day. I even made her sleep over. I was scared of being alone in my room at night. I'd never been like that before. Time crawled by, especially at night, and each second went on for an eternity. I felt like I was struggling to break through the glass wall in front of me. It was agonizing. Having another living, breathing person around made things easier. But then she got frustrated because the homework was hard. She couldn't adjust to college life at all. I couldn't explain what was wrong with me, and she didn't believe me when I said I was a complete mess. I couldn't talk to her about it. I insisted that she do things beyond her abilities, and I hung out with her during breaks. I told her she was the only person I'd ever helped like that. But our relationship went downhill. She was pessimistic to begin with. She was never, ever happy. Before that, I used to joke around with her. Well, once I went on strike, she became morose. She had no idea how to appease me. When I saw her face, I couldn't take it. I wanted to cry. I had to hold it in, though. There was nothing I could say. After a while, my silence really hurt her. She was tired of bringing me down. One night, I asked her to try to smile a little. I said I couldn't stand to see that gloomy look on her face. So she stood up with a gloomy look on her face and left. She said she couldn't smile. She said she didn't want to see me anymore. Toon had been gazing at me the entire time, her eyes glistening as she spoke. How stupid is that, to hurt each other over nothing? That's so sad. Have you tried talking to her since? She was actually really hurt. I could see it on her face. Toon shrugged helplessly. She squeezed her eyes shut, grimacing. The moment I saw her face, I choked up. I knew I was wrong. I'd been too needy. I didn't have the strength to make her come back, though. Once, I went all the way over to her house. I walked for half an hour to apologize to her, and I'd even thought of some things to say to make her laugh. When I got to her front door and rang the buzzer, she sent her little sister down to tell me to go away. And that's when I lost my courage. I sat down on her front steps. I didn't know what to do, if I should get up and go home. After summer vacation, I ran into her at school. We both looked the other way and didn't say hi, and whenever I saw her coming, I tried to force myself not to run away, but my feet wouldn't obey, and then my entire day would be ruined. Nowadays, I hardly ever think about her, but of course, she's in my dreams all the time. The dream goes on until I say, "Let's not fight anymore," but she never responds. She just walks out, leaving me standing there. There was frustration in Toon's eyes. I could tell that her dream had opened old wounds. From the look in her eyes in the dream, I know she doesn't blame me. She resents me. There's a rift between us, but she has to learn not to lament for the dead. It's like being struck in the heart with an arrow. It's not about the arrow. The fact is, the damage is done. I nodded. I could picture Ziru in Toon's dream, the resentment in her eyes. I nodded again. I wanted more than anything to tell her it isn't so, but it seemed as if those words were intended for myself. I simply couldn't bring myself to say them. All I did was whisper, "She'll regret it." I was caught up in the moment, and the words crumbled inside of me. 2. If there were an encyclopedia on the subject of humanity, the scientific definition of a crocodile would be a hula hoop, or deadbolt, etc., optimized for secretly falling in love with other people. Ideally, the encyclopedia's editor would be adept at the use of figurative language, though of course one would hope the same for the whole of humanity someday. Note on hula hoop, or dead bolt, etc. Once functional, it will emit affirmative noises. All its life, the crocodile had longed to meet its soulmate. Enough people had gathered to fill a truck, and the crocodile, happy as a pig in mud, was to be the truck's driver. The passengers included the classmates it saw from dawn to dusk, the stinky-breathed manager of the manga shop, the sales lady from the toy department, and the young man in the tank top who heaved the trash into the garbage truck at night. There were only 3 dentists, while classmates accounted for the vast majority. There was the one whom it fancied who cleaned the blackboard and delivered bento boxes. There was another who would drool while taking afternoon naps. The crowd was growing. When the crocodile pulled up in its street crush mobile, each of these people with their distinctive traits boarded the truck. The crocodile had a large wooden trunk, a kind of hope chest. The inside was partitioned like a honeycomb, and each partition was labeled with a name, a list of traits, and the date of first meeting. Inside each partition were the love letters the crocodile had written to its love interests. When the crocodile got home from work, it removed the sweat-soaked human suit clinging to its body and settled in for the night. Usually, it hid in the bedroom. Hid because it feared the people on the living room TV might burst in at any moment and discover its forbidden feelings for so many people. Upon opening the trunk, the crocodile kindled the flame it carried for each of its love interests. Whenever it grew sentimental, it blew its nose into a wad of toilet paper, then took out a note card and began penning the next reply in the series of letters from its imaginary lover. Kobo Abe. The name radiated through the curtains and into the crocodile's bedroom. There was a slight change in the project. The crocodile reassigned all its love interests the alias of Kobo Abe, recataloguing them. Most likely, it was the crocodile's reading of The Face of Another that had given rise to its secret crushes on human beings of all kinds. In the end, the crocodile had to pay its dues to the book that started it all. Dear Mr. Crocodile, having received the tape of your first love letter to Kobo Abe, I could thank you until my pubes damn near fall out. I am loath to be included in that Pandora's box of yours. To be desired ought to be a happy thing, but could it be that you remain ignorant of the fact that the torch has been passed to you? The suffering that we, a chorus of Kobo Abes, have undergone is tremendous. Take a cue from the media, and show them where you draw the line.